Queen Isolde stood before her tall mirror, staring at her reflection as her maid, Ellen, tied the last ribbon on her pale blue gown. The silk shimmered, but it could not hide the tired look in her eyes. "Your Majesty looks beautiful," Ellen said softly. Isolde gave a faint smile. "Beautiful or not, beauty doesn't give an air." Ellen hesitated. "Tonight is the council feast. Perhaps the king will sit at the far end of the table and speak only of trade routes," Isolde finished for her. "He always does." The maid lowered her head. "Forgive me." "There is nothing to forgive." Isolde waved her hand gently and turned back to the mirror. For 8 years she had been queen of this kingdom, respected, admired, and completely alone. Every month she walked to her husband's chambers because duty demanded it, and every month she left before dawn untouched. Outside, bells rang from the palace towers, announcing the arrival of her sister, Lady Marin. Isolde's heart lifted a little. Marin always brought warmth, laughter, and far too much trouble. The door burst open before the guard could announce her. "You look dreadful," Marin declared cheerfully, sweeping into the room with a swirl of crimson skirts. "Good evening to you too," Isolde said dryly. Marin grinned and kissed her sister's cheek. "I come bearing gifts." From her sleeve she pulled a tiny glass vial filled with golden liquid. A fertility draught. Real witchcraft from the southern covens. Isolde stiffened. "Marin, listen first," Marin urged. "They say it wakes what has been sleeping between mates. It could help you." Isolde looked at the vial glittering between them. For a heartbeat she imagined holding a child, small and soft, with Alaric's silver eyes. Then the thought broke like glass. No magic can fix a marriage that isn't real. Marin's smile faded. "You can't go on like this, I say. The court whispers." "I know what they whisper," Isolde interrupted, her voice low but firm. "They call me Baron. They think the fault is mine. Let them." "You shouldn't have to bear it alone," Marin said gently. "I am the queen. Alone is part of the crown." Isolde took the vial, more to end the discussion than from hope. She placed it on her dressing table beside her brushes. "I will keep it," she said, "as a reminder of your faith in impossible things." Marin sighed but squeezed her sister's hand. "Just promise me you'll be kind to yourself." "I'll try," Isolde said. It was all she could promise. That evening, at the council feast, the great hall glittered with candles and jewels. Lords and ladies laughed and drank while musicians played soft tunes. At the high table, King Alaric sat straight and silent, his face calm as carved stone. Isolde watched him from the corner of her eye. He was handsome in a cold way. Dark hair, silver eyes, the aura of power that made people lower their voices when he entered a room. Once, years ago, she had thought that same power meant safety. Now it only reminded her of distance. When the feast ended, she rose and curtsied. "Good night, Your Majesty," she said politely. He inclined his head. "Rest well, Isolde." He used her name rarely. Tonight it sounded almost gentle. She wanted to believe it meant something, but she knew better. Later, alone in her chambers, she looked at the small glass vial again. "Old magic," Marin had said. "To wake what's sleeping." Isolde laughed softly. "If only I knew what was sleeping, his heart or mine." She placed the vial back in its box and blew out the candle. In the darkness she whispered, "Tomorrow is the full moon." Her voice trembled. "Tomorrow I will try again." The corridors were silent except for the echo of Isolde's footsteps. Moonlight spilled through the tall windows, turning the marble floor to silver. She carried no torch. She had walked this path too many times to need one. Each step felt heavier as she neared the king's chambers. 8 years of trying, 8 years of disappointment. Yet duty pulled her forward. 2 guards stood outside the double doors. They bowed deeply. "Her Majesty," one said, opening the way. Isolde hesitated, drawing a steadying breath, then entered. The king's room was dim, lit only by the dying embers of the hearth. Heavy curtains shut out the moon. The air smelled faintly of smoke and pine, and something else, sharp and bitter. "Your Majesty," she called softly. No answer. She crossed the room, her bare feet silent on the rug. The great four-poster bed loomed ahead, curtains drawn. She stopped and listened, their slow, steady breathing. "Alaric," she whispered. Still nothing. She pulled the curtain back. The king lay on his side, fully clothed, his face peaceful in sleep. For a moment she almost smiled. Asleep, he looked younger, almost kind. Then she noticed the small glass vial lying empty beside the bed. Her stomach turned cold. She picked it up, brought it to her nose, and caught the scent of valerian and dream root. A sleeping draught, strong enough to keep even a wolf under. He had drugged himself. "Why?" she breathed. "Why would you rather sleep than look at me?" The hurt rose before she could stop it. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at his still face. "I am your wife," she whispered. "You owe me at least the truth." Anger flickered through her grief. "You can lead armies, sign treaties, face monsters in battle, but you cannot face me?" Her voice broke. "Am I that unbearable?" He didn't stir. The potion held him deep. She laughed once, bitterly. Of course. Sleeping king. Fitting for a ghost of a queen. For a long moment she simply sat there, the vial turning in her fingers. The clock ticked softly on the mantel. Then, because she had to keep up appearances, she lay down beside him. If the servants saw her return too soon, rumors would flare again. The mattress dipped under her weight. The distance between them felt like an ocean. She lay on her side, staring at the fire's last glow. After a while, Alaric shifted in his sleep, turning toward her. His hand moved, almost absently, until his fingers brushed hers. Isolde froze. His touch was warm, strong even in unconsciousness. For 8 years she had dreamed of that touch. Her throat tightened. She let their fingers rest together, pretending, just for a heartbeat, that he meant it, that he loved her, that the silence was something softer than rejection. Then sense returned. Gently, she withdrew her hand. "Not like this," she murmured. "Not when you don't even know." She turned away, pulling the blanket to her chin. Behind her, Alaric's breathing stayed deep and even. "Good night, my king," she whispered. "Sleep well. At least one of us can." Morning came pale and cold. Servants moved quietly through the corridors, lighting fires and carrying trays. Isolde returned to her own rooms before anyone could question her early. Ellen was waiting, worry creasing her brow. "Did His Majesty?" "No," Isolde said quickly. "He was tired." The lie came too easily. After the maid left, Marin slipped in without knocking, as usual. "Well," she demanded. "Any progress?" Isolde's laugh held no humor. "Yes. He's perfected the art of sleeping through his marriage." Marin's eyes widened. "He drugged himself again. Every month, it seems." Isolde handed her the empty vial she had taken from his floor. "He must have a cabinet full of these." Marin turned the bottle in her fingers, frowning. "This isn't a normal sleeping potion. Too strong. He shouldn't need so much. Perhaps he prefers dreams to me." "Don't," Marin said softly. "Don't blame yourself. Who else is there to blame?" Isolde's voice wavered, then steadied. "The council whispers that I'm barren. They're wrong, of course. The truth is worse. I'm untouched." Marin set the vial down gently. "If you truly believe he'll never change, maybe it's time to stop waiting." "I can't." Isolde crossed to the window, watching the morning mist rise over the gardens. "If I leave, the alliance collapses. The kingdoms fall back into war. And part of me," she swallowed, "part of me still hopes." "Hope can be cruel," Marin said. "It keeps you walking toward a door that never opens." Isolde turned. "Then I'll keep knocking until it does." Marin shook her head but smiled faintly. "Stubborn as always. That's why you love me." "That, and because you never stop fighting," Marin said. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Use the potion I gave you. Not to trap him. To free yourself. Let magic decide what reason cannot. Isolde looked down at the small golden vial. In the light it seemed almost alive, pulsing softly. And if it destroys what little peace we have, then maybe it will build something real from the ashes. Isolde slipped the vial into her sleeve. I'll think about it. That's all I ask. Marin hugged her quickly and left. When the door closed, silence filled the chamber again. Isolde stared at the vial, feeling its faint warmth against her skin. Old magic, she whispered. To wake what's sleeping. Outside, the palace bell struck noon. Somewhere far away in the king's wing, another door shut softly, the sound of Alaric sealing himself away once more. Isolde closed her eyes and made a promise to the quiet room. Tomorrow, I will stop being the ghost in this marriage. Tomorrow, I will learn why the king fears his queen. She set the vial beside her bed, where the light caught it like a single captured sunbeam, and let herself imagine that maybe, just maybe, the next full moon would bring change. Winter had wrapped the kingdom in silver. Frost glazed the palace gardens, and banners hung stiff in the icy wind. That night, the grand ballroom blazed with candles for the midwinter masquerade, a festival of color meant to remind the court that warmth still existed somewhere in the world. Queen Isolde stood at the top of the marble staircase, her mask of gold filigree hiding only part of her face. Beneath it, her eyes were calm, her mouth a careful smile. Every noble in the hall turned to look at her, pity, envy, curiosity gleaming like jewels. King Alaric stood at the far end of the room, surrounded by ministers. His mask was plain black, his posture perfect. He hadn't spoken to her since that last visit to his chamber. Weeks of silence had stretched between them, brittle as ice. Ellen whispered at her shoulder, "Your Majesty, the orchestra is ready. Shall I announce you to dance?" "No," Isolde said softly. "The king is already occupied." Indeed, Alaric was crossing to the visiting Princess Alara of the Western Isles. The princess curtsied with a smile that could melt stone. Alaric bowed slightly and offered his hand. The musicians began a slow waltz. "They suit each other," murmured one lady nearby. "The princess is rumored to be fertile." Isolde ignored the sting. She descended the stairs, moving with regal ease. Every step felt like armor. If they wanted a queen made of marble, she would give them one. "Your Majesty!" A warm voice interrupted her thoughts. She turned to find a man bowing low, a tall figure in silver and white, mask pushed up to reveal kind brown eyes. "Ambassador Silas of the Eastern Courts," he introduced himself. "Might I have the honor of a dance?" Isolde hesitated. She could feel the court's eyes upon her. Across the room, Alaric's hand rested at the princess's waist, guiding her effortlessly through the waltz. He did not look toward his queen. Isolde straightened. "Yes, Ambassador. You may." Gasps rippled softly as he led her to the floor. The strings rose again, slow and graceful. Silas's hand was steady at her back, warm through the silk of her gown. "You dance beautifully, Your Majesty," he said. "I was trained to look effortless," she replied, a trace of humor in her voice. "It is one of the few skills a queen may display without offense." He smiled. "You sound lonely when you say that." She met his gaze briefly. "Lonely is safer." For a few moments they moved in silence. The crowd parted slightly, whispering. Isolde kept her eyes on the polished floor, pretending not to hear the words. "Barren, forgotten, pity." Silas leaned closer. "If the court cannot see your worth, they are blind." "That is generous of you," she said quietly. "I am only honest," he answered. "In my country, we believe the moon favors courage. And you, my queen, are courage made flesh." Before she could reply, the air in the ballroom changed. A subtle shift, like thunder waiting far away. Her skin prickled. She knew that feeling. Alaric's presence when his wolf stirred. She lifted her head. Across the shining floor, Alaric had stopped dancing. His silver eyes, visible above the edge of his mask, were locked on her. Her heart stumbled. She should look away, but she didn't. For the first time in years his gaze burned, not cold but alive, fierce, almost angry. She raised her chin slightly, meeting it head-on. "You see me now," she thought. Silas spun her gracefully, breaking the connection for a heartbeat. When she faced that direction again, Alaric was moving toward them through the crowd. The music faltered. Whispering grew louder. "Your Majesty," Alaric said as he reached them, voice calm but edged with steel. "May I borrow my queen for a word?" "Of course," Silas said, bowing, though confusion flickered across his face. Alaric's hand closed around Isolde's wrist. Firm, not cruel. "This way," he murmured. He led her from the floor, through the side doors, into an empty corridor washed in moonlight. The door shut behind them with a thud. For a long moment neither spoke. The only sound was their breathing and the faint echo of music beyond the walls. For a heartbeat they stood inches apart, the air thick with things unsaid. His breath caught, hers matched it. The world narrowed to the sound of their hearts. Then Alaric stepped back abruptly, as if distance were the only air he could breathe. "I cannot," he said hoarsely. "Cannot or will not. It's the same." "No," she whispered. "It isn't." Anger surged, chasing the ache. "You lead armies, command storms, break curses for strangers, but when it comes to your wife, you are a coward." He turned toward her sharply, eyes bright silver now. "You do not know what I have done for you." "Then tell me," she pleaded. "Tell me so I might understand." But he only shook his head. "If I tell you, you will hate me." "I already hate this silence," she said. What more could there be? For a moment he looked as if he might answer. Then something inside him shuddered. "Go back to the ballroom, Isolde." She stared at him, searching his face for the man she had once hoped to love. "You have built so many walls, my king," she said quietly. "One day you'll find yourself alone behind them." She turned to leave, skirts whispering against the stone. His hand lifted, then fell before it reached her. "Isolde," he began, but she didn't look back. The corridor felt endless as she walked away. Her chest ached, her pulse wild. When she returned to the ballroom, the music had started again. The courtiers tried not to stare, but whispers bloomed like weeds. Ambassador Silas approached carefully. "Are you all right, Your Majesty?" "I am fine," she said, though her voice shook slightly. "Thank you for your concern." He bowed. "If you ever need an ally at court." "I have one," she interrupted, forcing a smile. "Myself." When he left, she stood alone beneath the chandeliers. Across the room, she saw Alaric re-enter through another door. For the briefest moment, their eyes met again. Something haunted lingered in his gaze. Remorse, fear, longing, but she looked away first. Later that night, Isolde sat by her window, staring out at the frozen gardens. Snow drifted softly, catching the moonlight. She thought of the anger in Alaric's voice, the tremor in his hands, the way he had said, "If I lose control, it could destroy us both." "What are you hiding from me?" she whispered to the quiet room. Her fingers brushed the golden vial Marin had given her, still lying in its box. She turned it over, watching the liquid swirl. "Old magic," Marin had said. "To wake what is sleeping." Maybe it was time. She set the vial down but didn't look away from it. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled, a lonely, mournful sound. The wind carried it through the window like a memory. "Tomorrow," she murmured. "Tomorrow, I'll stop waiting for him to change. Tomorrow, I'll change our fate myself." Meanwhile, across the palace, King Alaric stood alone in his study. His fists pressed against the edge of the desk, knuckles white. The potion cabinet stood open beside him, rows of small vials glinting in the firelight. He had used the sleeping draught again that morning, but its comfort was fading fast. He could still smell her, jasmine and snow. Her words echoed through him like a blade. "You are a coward." he whispered to the empty room. If only you knew what I promised to keep you safe. From the shadows, the faint outline of a sigil glowed at the base of his throat, the mark of a vow bound in blood and moonlight. It pulsed once, warning, and pain lanced through his chest. He gritted his teeth until the light faded. Outside, the wind howled again. For a moment, it sounded like her voice calling his name. He closed his eyes. "Forgive me, Isolde," he said softly. "One day when the curse ends, I will tell you everything." But deep down, he feared that by the time that day came, it would be far too late. The winter storm had not stopped for 3 days. Wind howled through the high towers, shaking shutters and making the castle groan. In her chambers, Queen Isolde sat by the fire, hands folded in her lap, staring at the empty chair across from her. It was the same chair King Alaric had used once, years ago, to sit and speak with her about treaties, harvests, and the welfare of their people. Never about them. The silence pressed harder than the storm. The door opened softly. Marin slipped inside, her cloak dusted with snow. "You've not eaten again," she said, her voice worried. "Ellen says you haven't slept either." Isolde's smile was faint. "I've grown used to sleepless nights." Marin crossed to her, holding out a small parcel wrapped in cloth. "Bread and honey. Eat something, at least for appearance's sake." "I'm not hungry." "You need your strength," Marin insisted. "The court's tongues grow sharper each day. They think the king favors another." "Do they?" Isolde asked, voice quiet but steady. "Perhaps they are right to think so." Marin's eyes softened. "You still love him." "Love?" Isolde gave a small, broken laugh. "How can I love a man who doesn't even look at me? He hides from me as if my presence burns him." "Then make him look," Marin said. "Make him see what he's throwing away." Isolde stood, pacing slowly. "And how do I do that, sister?" "Beg. Scream." "I've tried silence, patience, kindness. None of them move him." "Then stop waiting for him to move," Marin said. She reached into her cloak and pulled out the golden vial. "You still have this." Isolde stared at it. "Marin, listen. You've spent 8 years chained by his distance. This may be your only chance to free yourself. Drink it and let the old magic decide what happens next. If he loves you, even buried deep, this will wake it. If not," she shrugged, "then at least you'll know the truth." Isolde took the vial, turning it in the firelight. The liquid shimmered like molten gold. "You truly believe this will work?" "I believe it will do something," Marin said quietly. "And something is better than this endless nothing." Isolde held the vial a moment longer. Then she nodded once. "Tomorrow night is the full moon. If change is to come, it will come then." The next evening, the castle glittered with candlelight as nobles gathered for the end of winter feast. Isolde entered the hall wearing deep blue velvet, her hair loose for once, a silver circlet resting above her brow. Conversations halted as she passed. Even the king looked up. For a long moment, their eyes met across the hall. Alaric's expression shifted. Surprise, then something unreadable. Isolde did not falter. She crossed to her seat and inclined her head politely. "Your Majesty," she greeted. "Your Grace," he replied, his voice low. "You look radiant tonight." It was the first compliment he had given her in years. "Perhaps the light flatters me," she said lightly. "Or perhaps the cold makes the pale seem fair." He almost smiled. "You've always had a sharp tongue. Someone must keep yours in practice," she answered. They dined in near peace, the tension soft but ever present. When the final toast ended, Alaric rose. "If you will excuse me, I have matters to attend to." Of course, Isolde thought bitterly. Always matters, never me. When she returned to her chambers, the vial waited on her dressing table. The moonlight glowed through the curtains, silver and cold. She picked up the vial, holding it to the light. "To wake what is sleeping," she whispered and removed the stopper. The taste was sweet and strange, like honey laced with starlight. Heat spread through her veins, not painful but powerful, and she sank onto the bed as the world tilted. Colors deepened, sounds sharpened, the fire crackled louder, the air hummed faintly with energy. She felt her heartbeat echoing not just in her chest but in the very walls. And then, far away, a door opened. King Alaric woke with a start, his senses sharp, his wolf restless beneath his skin. The pull came suddenly, a magnetic thread wrapping around his chest, drawing him toward the east wing, toward her. "No," he whispered to himself. "Not now." But the bond, long suppressed, had stirred. The scent of Isolde filled his mind. Jasmine, snow, something wilder beneath. His hands trembled. The sleeping draught no longer dulled him. The curse no longer held. His pulse quickened with need and fear. He left his chamber without a word. His footsteps silent on the cold stone. Guards bowed as he passed, but none dared speak. His wolf growled softly, urging him forward. When he reached her door, the scent hit him fully, rich and alive. His control wavered. He pushed the door open. Isolde was standing by the window, the moonlight painting her in silver. Her gown shimmered like frost. She turned at the sound, and their eyes met. "Your Majesty," she said softly. "Couldn't sleep." He stared speechless. Her presence flooded his senses. "What have you done?" She frowned. "I don't understand. There's magic in the air, ancient and strong." His voice roughened. "Tell me, Isolde, what did you take?" She hesitated, then said simply, "Something my sister gave me. She said it might wake what was sleeping." Alaric stepped closer, his expression torn between anger and awe. "Do you know what you've done?" "Perhaps for the first time in years," she said quietly. "I've done something that matters." He took another step. "You don't understand. The curse." "Curse," she repeated. "Is that what this is? What's kept you from me all this time?" "Yes," he said. The word tore out of him. "A curse born of my own mistake." "Then let me share it," she said. "I am your queen." "No," he was so close now she could feel the heat radiating off him. "You must never share it." "Then what do you want from me?" she whispered. "To stand beside you yet never touch you. To bear your crown but not your heart. I cannot live that way anymore, Alaric." He reached for her almost against his will, his fingers brushing her arm. The contact sent a shiver through them both. Power crackled in the air, golden and alive. His wolf surged forward, demanding, desperate. "Isolde," he breathed. "You don't know what this will do." "Then show me," she said, voice trembling but steady. "Show me what you've hidden." The magic flared. The mark beneath his collar burned, and he gasped. "It's too late," he whispered. "You've already broken it." The next moment the world exploded into light. The bond, long dormant, long denied, snapped into place like a door opening after years sealed shut. He felt her heartbeat echo through his own, her fear, her hope, her love, all of it. Tears stung his eyes. Their foreheads met, breath mingling. The tension that had bound them for years finally gave way to something fierce and beautiful. No words were left, only the truth thrumming between them. They were one. The storm outside calmed as if the heavens themselves held their breath. Then, faint and distant, a voice whispered through the air, cold and ancient. "The debt has been broken. The price must be paid." Alaric stiffened, the blood draining from his face. "Alaric!" Isolde whispered, sensing his sudden fear. He drew back slowly, eyes haunted. "What did you hear?" "Only the wind," she said. "Why? What is it?" "The curse," he said hollowly. "It wasn't meant to be broken until the 10th year." "What curse?" she demanded. "Tell me." He looked at her as though seeing her for the first time and already mourning her. "I bargained with the moon which 8 years ago. She gave me peace for the kingdom in exchange for 10 years of restraint. If I touched you before the time ended, she would take what was most precious to me." Isolde's stomach turned to ice. "And what is that?" He closed his eyes. "Our firstborn." She stumbled back, hands flying to her mouth. "No. I tried to protect you," he said, pain raw in his voice. "Every sleeping draft, every distance. It was to keep you safe." She shook her head. "You should have told me." "I couldn't. The vow forbade it. To speak it aloud before it broke would have killed us both." Tears slid down her cheeks. "Then what happens now?" Alaric's shoulders sagged. "Now, my love, the witch will come for what she's owed." She reached for him and he caught her hands, pressing them to his chest. "We will find a way," she said fiercely. "We'll fight her together." He managed a faint, sad smile. "You always did have more courage than sense. Then let my courage save us." For a long moment they stood wrapped in silence, their bond still glowing faintly between them. The warmth of it soothed even through the fear. At last he said quietly, "I swear to you, Isolde, I will not let her take you or our child. Even if it costs me everything." Her breath hitched. "Don't speak of costs. We've paid enough." But in her heart she already knew. Some debts demanded more than love could pay. The first light of dawn crept through the curtains, thin and cold, spreading across the tangled sheets, and the pair who had spent the night tangled in a silence that was both peace and fear. Queen Isolde woke first. For a moment she could not tell if the warmth against her skin was dream or truth. Then she felt the weight of King Alaric's arm around her waist. She froze, listening to the slow rhythm of his breathing. It had finally happened. After 8 years of walls, distance and silence, he had held her as if he would never let her go. She turned her head slightly. His face in the soft morning light looked almost gentle, younger than she remembered. She brushed a stray lock of hair from his forehead. His lashes fluttered, but he did not wake. A quiet joy rose in her chest. Maybe the curse had been broken, and the night had healed what years of emptiness had destroyed. Maybe at last they could be husband and wife in truth. But then she noticed his clenched fist. Even in sleep, his body was tense. His jaw moved slightly, as if caught in a silent argument. "Alaric," she whispered. He stirred, eyes opening slowly. For a heartbeat his expression softened. Then the shadow returned. He pulled his hand away and sat up, running a hand through his dark hair. "Isolde," he said softly, almost hoarse. She sat up too, clutching the sheet to her chest. "Good morning," she said, her voice trembling. "I thought perhaps." He turned away, staring at the dying fire. "I shouldn't have come." The words cut through her. "What do you mean?" He stood, pulling on his shirt. "The curse is broken." Felt it. "And with it, the witch will know." She rose quickly, the sheet falling to her waist. "You can't mean to run from this. You said you'd fight." "I will," he said, buttoning his collar with shaking fingers. "But I must think. I must find a way to keep you safe before she claims her price." She stepped closer. "What if I am already carrying that price?" He froze. "What did you say?" "I can feel it," she whispered. "Something inside me has changed. I think I'm with child." For a moment he simply stared at her, eyes wide with shock. Then pain, fear, and wonder crossed his face all at once. He reached out, his hand hovering near her cheek, but he did not touch. "Isolde," he breathed. "If that's true, then we must face it together," she said. He shook his head. "You don't understand. The witch will come for the child. She will not stop." "Then let her come," Isolde said fiercely. "We are not helpless." But Alaric only looked at her with sorrow. "You have no idea what she is." Before she could answer, he turned and left, the door closing softly behind him. Isolde stood there for a long time, feeling the warmth of his presence fade like a dying flame. That afternoon Marin burst into the Queen's chamber, cheeks flushed from the cold. "You look pale," she said immediately. "What's happened?" Isolde hesitated, then whispered, "I think I am with child." Marin's eyes widened. "Truly?" "I can feel it," Isolde said, resting a hand on her stomach. "But Alaric, he is frightened. He spoke of a witch's curse." Marin went still, all color draining from her face. A witch. He said if he broke the vow, the witch would come for our firstborn. Marin sank into a chair, her hands trembling. Oh no. Oh sister, what have we done? What do you mean? Marin looked up, guilt shadowing her eyes. The potion I gave you, it wasn't harmless. I thought it would only wake the bond between you. But if he was bound by magic, by a curse, then what I did broke the seal. You knew, Isolde whispered. You knew there was a risk. I swear I didn't know about the witch, Marin said desperately. If I had, I'd never have given it to you. Isolde turned away, tears burning her eyes. Then I have doomed us all. No, Marin said, rising to grasp her shoulders. Listen to me. There may still be time. If the child is not yet born, the witch's claim is not complete. We can find a way to protect you both. How? There are old wards, Marin said. Ancient magic that can hide what is not yet of this world. We'll need herbs, blood, and moonlight. It will be dangerous, but safer than waiting for her to strike first. Isolde nodded slowly. Then do it. Whatever it takes. Marin pressed her forehead against her sister's. I'll do everything I can. That night Isolde dreamt of a voice calling her name through a forest of silver trees. She followed the sound, her bare feet leaving no prints in the snow. At the center of the forest stood a woman cloaked in light and shadow, her hair like strands of moonlight. Queen of Wolves, the woman said softly, her voice echoing like a melody. You have broken a sacred vow. Isolde stepped back. Who are you? The woman smiled, though it did not reach her eyes. You know who I am. The one your king feared. The one he promised himself to. The Moon Witch, Isolde whispered. Yes. The witch's gaze drifted downward, toward Isolde's belly. And that promise is broken. You carry what belongs to me. No, Isolde said fiercely. You'll never have my child. The witch's smile widened. You will see, little queen. Every bargain must be paid. The dream dissolved into mist. Isolde woke with a scream. Marin was already beside her, shaking her shoulders. What happened? She came to me, Isolde gasped. The witch. She knows. Marin's face went white. Then we have to hurry. The next day a storm gathered over the kingdom, dark clouds boiling across the sky. In the great hall, torches flickered despite the still air. Alaric stood before the hearth, staring into the flames. When Isolde entered he turned quickly. I was coming to you, he said. We have little time. I already know, she said quietly. The witch came to me in a dream. He closed his eyes. Then it's begun. Tell me everything, Alaric. No more secrets. He hesitated, then motioned for her to sit. 8 years ago, he began, our kingdom was on the brink of ruin. Plagues swept through the wolf clans. The rivers ran red. I sought aid from the Moon Witch, Irindra she called herself. She offered peace for 10 years if I swore never to claim my mate before the 10th full moon of the 10th year. If I broke that vow, she would take our firstborn to raise as her own, a child bound to darkness. Isolde's voice shook. And you agreed. I had no choice. Thousands would have died otherwise. The witch sealed the vow with her blood and mine. He pulled open his collar, showing the faint mark glowing beneath the skin. This is the brand of that promise. For years, I drank the sleeping draught to keep the bond dormant, to stop my wolf from reaching for you. And now that it's broken, the brand burns, he said quietly. It calls to her. She will come through the shadows when the moon is red. Isolde's hands tightened in her lap. Then we must leave before she arrives. He shook his head. Running will not help. Her reach is not bound by walls or distance. Then what can we do? I will find her, he said, his voice suddenly cold and sure. I will beg for another bargain if I must. No, she said, standing. You've given enough. There must be another way. There isn't, he said. I made this curse. I will bear its cost. Not alone, she said. He looked at her for a long moment, then reached out, touching her cheek with the back of his fingers. You have the heart of a queen, he whispered. But this battle is mine. Before she could answer, the doors of the hall burst open. A servant stumbled in, pale and shaking. Your Majesties, the sky. The moon has turned crimson. They ran to the window. Outside, the world was bathed in blood-red light. The storm had parted, revealing a moon like a burning ember. Alaric whispered, She's here. That night, as thunder rolled and the wind screamed around the towers, Alaric gathered his sword and cloak. I must face her before she reaches the gates, he said. Isolde blocked his path. If you go, I go. You cannot. If she sees you, she'll take you too. I am already bound to you, she said. There's no hiding from fate. He wanted to argue, but her eyes were fierce, unyielding. At last he nodded. Stay close, and do not speak to her unless I tell you. They stepped into the storm together. Lightning tore across the sky, lighting the courtyard in harsh flashes. At its center stood a figure draped in white and silver. Her hair streamed like mist, her eyes glowing with cold light. Alaric, the witch said, her voice smooth and deadly. You've broken your vow. He bowed his head slightly. Irindra, you knew the cost. Her gaze slid to Isolde. And yet you could not resist her. Take me, he said. Leave her. Leave the child. Irindra's smile was sharp. Always the noble king. But I do not bargain twice for the same debt. Isolde stepped forward. You'll take nothing from us. The witch's eyes narrowed. Brave words from a mortal queen. Mortal, yes, Isolde said, but not powerless. She drew a dagger from her sleeve, its blade etched with runes Marin had carved. You cannot take what is protected by blood freely given. She cut her palm and let the blood drip onto the ground. The runes flared, forming a glowing circle around them. Irindra hissed, stepping back. Witchcraft. From your sister's hand, no doubt. Family protects family, Isolde said. The witch's laughter rolled like thunder. For now. But you cannot keep me out forever. She lifted her hand, and the air shimmered. When the child is born, the bond will call me again. You cannot escape destiny. The wind howled, blinding them for a moment. When it cleared, she was gone, leaving only the echo of her laughter. Alaric dropped to his knees, exhausted. You've angered her, he said. Good, Isolde answered, clutching her bleeding hand. Let her know we will not surrender. He looked up at her, pride and fear mixing in his eyes. You amaze me, my queen. She knelt beside him, taking his face in her hands. Then let us face whatever comes, together. And as the storm slowly faded, they held each other beneath the crimson moon, knowing that peace had only just begun to crumble. By the time the moonlight faded from red to silver, the palace had gone silent. Fires burned low, servants whispered prayers, and no one dared speak the witch's name. In his private chamber, King Alaric sat before the hearth, a half-empty cup of wine cooling beside him. The mark on his collarbone still glowed faintly, throbbing with every heartbeat. When the door creaked open, he didn't need to look to know it was Isolde. Her scent reached him first, snow, jasmine, and smoke. You should rest, he said quietly. So should you. She closed the door behind her. You can't face a witch on no sleep. He smiled without humor. I've slept too long already. She crossed the room, stopping beside him. You promised to tell me the whole truth. He sighed, setting the cup aside. You deserve that. He rose and went to the window. When I became king, the kingdom was dying. Crops failed, wolves turned on one another, and the gods were silent. I sought every kind of aid, priests, healers, seers, until at last I found her. Irindra. Isolde listened in silence as he spoke. She offered salvation at a price. 10 years of peace if I would give her something of equal value. I thought she wanted gold, land, a promise of loyalty. But she wanted a vow. The vow of an alpha. He turned back toward her. An alpha's vow shapes the world. I swore I would not claim my mate until 10 years had passed. In return she would lift the famine and silence the storms. And she did. She did, he said. The kingdom flourished. But I didn't know her real desire. She wanted my heir. A child born of the strongest alpha bond would hold power even she could not command. She planned to take that power for herself. Isolde's hand went to her stomach unconsciously. And now that I am with child, she will come for it. Then we must flee, Isolde said. There must be somewhere she cannot reach. There's nowhere beyond her shadow, he said. But perhaps I can distract her. Offer her something else. You would bargain again, she demanded. After what the last bargain cost. If it keeps you alive, yes. She caught his hands. No more sacrifices, Alaric. We'll find another path. He looked down at their joined fingers. I have spent 8 years protecting you by staying away. Perhaps the last thing I can do is protect you by standing beside you. For a long moment they simply held each other. Then a knock broke the quiet. Marin slipped in breathless. The wards are failing. The witch's magic is leaking through the gates. We have to go now. Alaric's jaw tightened. Take Isolde to the eastern woods. There's an old watchtower there. Hide her. I'm not leaving you, Isolde said. You must. He kissed her forehead quickly. Trust me. No, she whispered. Not again. But he was already strapping on his sword. I'll follow as soon as I can. If I don't, you run until the mountains block the sky. Tears glimmered in her eyes. You always ask for faith while giving none to yourself. He looked at her then, the woman who had waited 8 years for one night of truth, and said softly, It's not faith in myself I ask for. It's faith in us. She nodded once. Then I'll wait for you. But not forever. The night was black as ink. Clouds smothered the moon, and thunder growled somewhere beyond the hills. Isolde and Marin moved through the deserted halls, cloaked in grey. Servants had been ordered to their quarters. The guards at the eastern gate lay unconscious, lulled by Marin's sleeping draught. Keep close, Marin whispered. Isolde gripped her cloak tighter, every sense on edge. The palace that had once felt like a prison now felt like a tomb. At the last corridor, she turned for one final look. In the highest tower she could see a single light. Alaric's study. He was still there. Go, Marin urged. They slipped into the gardens, the wind cutting through the hedges. Somewhere in the distance wolves howled, the king's scouts perhaps, or something darker. When they reached the outer wall, Marin handed her a small pouch. For protection. Herbs, silver, salt. Keep it close. Isolde took it. Will it hide us from her? For a time, Marin said. But the witch's power grows stronger every hour. They mounted horses waiting in the shadows. As they rode through the gate, thunder cracked overhead, and rain began to fall, heavy, relentless, washing away the tracks behind them. Inside the palace, Alaric stood before the throne, the hall lit only by lightning. The witch's voice whispered from the corners of the room, echoing through the marble. Where is she, my king? He drew his sword. Gone beyond your reach. A cold laugh answered him. There is no beyond. Shadows gathered near the dais, forming into a woman's shape. Tall, graceful, her eyes glowing pale blue. You could have had everything, Irindra said. A decade of peace, eternal rule. But you chose her. I chose love, he said simply. Then you chose death. She lifted her hand, and the mark on his collar blazed like fire. He staggered, choking. Pain shot through every nerve. He dropped to one knee but forced his head up. You cannot break me, he gasped. I am bound to her now. Irindra smiled. Exactly. And through that bond I can find her. He lunged forward, swinging his sword through the illusion. Passed through smoke. The witch's laughter filled the hall as her image dissolved. Alaric rose unsteadily, clutching his chest. The mark still burned, but he smiled grimly. Not if I find you first. He grabbed his cloak and left the hall, calling for his most loyal guards. Seal every road to the east, he ordered. And send word to the High Seer in the northern pass. Tell her the witch walks again. Far from the palace, Isolde and Marin rode until the forest swallowed the last trace of light. The path turned to mud. Branches whipped at their cloaks. Do you think he's safe? Isolde asked over the rain. He's Alaric, Marin said. He'll survive anything but himself. They reached the old watchtower before dawn, a lonely stone ruin half hidden by ivy. Inside, the air smelled of dust and wild herbs. Marin lit a small fire and spread a blanket on the floor. You need to rest. I can't, Isolde said, pacing. Every time I close my eyes I see her. Then stay awake, Marin said gently. But keep your strength. The child will need it. The word child, Isolde stopped. Her hand went to her stomach again. Marin, what if he's right? What if this baby is what she wants most? Then we'll make sure she never has it, Marin said firmly. There are ways to bind a soul to its mother before birth. She cannot steal what is already claimed. Can you do that? I can try. They began gathering what they needed. Chalk, herbs, drops of Isolde's blood mixed with salt. Marin drew a circle on the stone floor and murmured old words under her breath. When the final word left her lips, the fire flared bright green, then settled. The air hummed softly. It's done, Marin said. For now, you and the child are hidden. Isolde exhaled, relief and exhaustion washing through her. Thank you. Marin smiled faintly. Don't thank me yet. Magic like this always demands balance. What kind of balance? Time will tell. Back at the palace, dawn broke gray and uneasy. Alaric stood on the balcony overlooking the valley. From here, the storm looked almost beautiful, a sea of mist rolling over dark trees. But he felt the witch's presence in every gust of wind. Captain Rowan approached quietly. The Queen. Gone, Alaric said. Safe, I hope. Rowan hesitated. And you, my king. What will you do now? Alaric looked east. Whatever I must. In the forest, Isolde awoke to the crackle of fire and the smell of herbs. Marin was kneeling by the doorway, whispering a prayer to the old gods. Any sign of her? Isolde asked. Not yet, Marin said. But the winds are restless. They spent the day repairing the tower's roof and gathering food. As night fell, the sky cleared, and a thin crescent moon appeared. For the first time in days, the forest was quiet. Isolde sat by the fire, watching the flames dance. Do you ever wonder if peace is just another kind of illusion? She asked softly. Marin looked up. Meaning? That every time we think we've found safety, the world finds a way to take it back. Marin smiled sadly. Then maybe peace isn't a place, maybe it's a moment we fight to keep. Isolde nodded, though her gaze stayed distant. Then I'll fight for mine. For him. For our child. Outside, a lone wolf howled. Deep, mournful but alive. Alaric, she whispered. He had found them. Or perhaps the bond had guided him. Through forest and rain, through pain and fear. He had followed the faint thread that bound him to her. When he appeared at the tower doorway, soaked and exhausted, Isolde ran to him. You're hurt. Just tired, he said, catching her in his arms. Marin turned away politely, pretending to busy herself with the fire. I told you I'd find you, he said softly. And I told you not to make promises you can't keep, she replied, smiling through tears. He touched her cheek. This one I intend to keep. She leaned into his hand. Then we face whatever comes next, together. Outside, the first light of dawn spread through the trees, pale and uncertain but real. For now at least they were safe. But in the far distance, deep within the storm-colored clouds, something stirred. A shadow moving toward the forest, slow and inevitable. The witch had found the trail. And the war for their child had only just begun. The rain had passed by dawn, leaving the world drenched and shining. Mist coiled between the trees around the old tower where Isolde, Alaric, and Marin had taken shelter. The stone walls still hummed faintly from Marin's spell. Inside, everything smelled of smoke, damp earth, and wild herbs. Isolde woke first. Her back ached, her body already heavy with the quiet promise of new life. For a moment she simply watched Alaric sleeping beside the fire. He looked more at peace than she had ever seen him. Exhausted, yes, but finally still. When she tried to stand, the sound woke him. His hand went automatically to his sword before he recognized her. "Isolde," he murmured, lowering the blade. "You should rest." "I can't sleep," she said. "The baby moves already." He sat up quickly, concern in his eyes. "Does it hurt?" "No," she said, smiling faintly. "It's strange. Like a heartbeat that isn't mine." He moved closer, kneeling beside her. "May I?" She nodded. He placed his hand lightly on her stomach, and for a heartbeat the world seemed to pause. His eyes softened. "He's strong." "How do you know it's a he?" she asked. "Call it a father's hope," he said. Then quieter. "I never thought I'd feel this. Life, ours, beating beneath my hand." She took his hand and pressed it tighter against her. "Then don't let fear steal this moment." He looked at her, something unspoken in his gaze. "I won't." The day passed slowly. Marin prepared charms while Alaric reinforced the door with fallen branches. By evening, a small peace had settled among them, uneasy but real. When the first stars appeared, Isolde sat by the fire while Marin mixed herbs into a steaming bowl. "This tea will strengthen the ward," Marin explained. "But it must be renewed every night. And if we fail, then the witch will find you before the child is born." Alaric looked up from the map he was studying. "She'll come sooner. I can feel her moving closer. The mark burns whenever she crosses the borders." "Then what will you do?" Marin asked. He studied the glowing coals. "Fight if I must. But not here. If she finds this place, she'll destroy it." "You're not leaving me again," Isolde said sharply. He met her eyes. "If I go, it's to draw her away. To buy time." "You think I'll hide while you throw your life away?" she demanded. "This isn't bravery, Isolde, it's strategy. If she kills me, she may be satisfied. If she kills you, she takes everything." "You can't know that," she whispered. "No," he admitted. "But I can hope." She turned from him, tears of frustration shining in her eyes. "You always speak of hope when you mean despair." Marin stood, placing a calming hand on Isolde's shoulder. "Both of you rest. Tomorrow we plan. Tonight we keep the fire burning and pray the wards hold." Sometime past midnight, Isolde woke to a strange sound, a whisper faint but clear, threading through the cracks in the tower stones. "Isolde." She sat up, heart pounding. The fire had burned low. The air was cold. Across the room Alaric slept with his sword still in hand. Marin was a dark shape against the wall. "Queen of Wolves," the voice murmured. "You cannot hide forever." She rose slowly. Outside the window, mist swirled like pale ribbons. A woman's outline shimmered within it, tall, graceful, her eyes 2 points of light. "Leave us," Isolde whispered. "You carry my promise," the voice replied. "You carry what is mine." "No." The whisper grew colder. "When the child draws its first breath, I will come to claim the second." The mist dispersed, leaving only silence. Isolde sank to her knees, trembling. Alaric woke instantly, sword half drawn. "What is it?" "She found us," she said. "She spoke to me." He pulled her into his arms, holding her until her shaking eased. "Then we run again." She shook her head. "No. Running won't help. If she means to take our child, then we'll make her fight for it." He looked down at her, pride and fear mixing in his eyes. "My queen," he said softly, "you sound like the warrior I fell in love with before I ever touched you." Weeks passed. Winter melted into pale spring. The tower became their home, a hollow cottage hidden under vines. Each morning Alaric hunted. Each night Marin taught Isolde the protective chants of the old ways. The baby grew stronger, and so did the bond between king and queen. But the peace could not last. On the first full moon of spring, the mark on Alaric's chest began to burn again, hot enough to sear through the cloth. He dropped to his knees, gasping. Isolde ran to him. "Alaric! She's coming," he managed. "Tonight." Marin threw powder into the fire. It blazed blue. "Then we have no time. The birth has begun." Indeed, pain struck Isolde suddenly, sharp and deep. She clutched the edge of the table, breath shattering in her chest. "It's too soon," she gasped. "The child chooses its hour," Marin said. "Lie down. Quickly." Lightning flashed outside. The wind howled around the tower, shaking the stones. Alaric caught Isolde's hand, his grip strong despite the tremors that racked him. "You can't fight her and stay here," Marin said urgently. "I'll do both," he answered. "She won't cross this threshold while I breathe." Hours blurred into one another. Pain, thunder, the smell of burning herbs. Marin worked tirelessly, murmuring spells of strength and light. Alaric stayed by Isolde's side, whispering words she couldn't always hear. Between waves of pain she saw his face, pale with fear and love. At last a cry broke through the storm. Marin lifted the small blood-slick bundle and smiled through tears. "A boy," she said. Strong and loud. Isolde reached for him, joy flooding her heart. "Thorn," she whispered. "Our Thorn." But the joy lasted only a moment. The fire dimmed suddenly, as if a great wind had swept through the room. The air grew cold. Outside lightning flared green. "She's here," Alaric said, drawing his sword. Marin clutched the baby close. "I'll guard them." The door burst open, though no hand touched it. Irindra stepped through, her gown flowing like mist, her eyes fixed on the newborn. "Beautiful," she said. "Just as I foresaw." Alaric stood between her and the bed. "You'll not take him." She smiled. "Do you remember the bargain, my king? 10 years of peace for one vow of abstinence. You broke it in 8. The debt is due. Take me instead," he said. "Let the boy live." "Your life was never the price," she said. "Your child was. Power born of love and blood, mine by right." Isolde pushed herself upright, her face pale but determined. "If you ever loved him, spare the child. Spare us." Irindra's expression flickered. "Love. I knew love once. Made me weak. Never again." She raised her hand, and the flames in the hearth turned white. Alaric moved faster than thought, slashing his sword in an arc of silver light. The blade passed through her like smoke. She laughed softly. "You cannot kill what was never alive." He dropped to one knee, the mark on his chest blazing. "Then let me fulfill the vow another way," he gasped. "Let the father's blood repay the debt." The witch paused, curious. "You would die for them." "I would trade myself for their safety," he said. "Bind me to your realm. Take my life, my soul, whatever it costs." Isolde screamed. "No." But he did not look away from Irindra. The witch studied him for a long, silent moment. "Very well," she said at last. "A king's soul for a child's. A fair exchange." She extended her hand. A chain of light formed between them, linking their hearts. Alaric shuddered as the magic sank into his skin. The mark on his collar spread, covering his chest with glowing sigils. "Stop!" Isolde cried, struggling to rise. "There must be another way." Alaric turned toward her, his face calm now. "There isn't. Tell our son I loved him before he was born." Marin held the baby tighter, tears streaming down her cheeks. "This isn't fair." "Nothing about love is fair," Alaric said gently. He bent over Isolde, brushing a kiss against her forehead. "Live. Rule. Tell him stories about me." "I can't," she began, but his form was already fading, his outline dissolving into mist. Irindra's voice echoed through the storm. The bargain is complete. Then both she and Alaric vanished, leaving only the faint scent of rain and steel. For a long time the only sound was the baby's quiet crying. Marin laid Thorn in his mother's arms. Isolde held him close, rocking back and forth, her tears falling onto his tiny face. "He's gone," she whispered. "Truly gone." Marin knelt beside her. "He saved you both. He'd have wanted you to live." Isolde looked down at the child. "Then I'll live for him. For both of them." Outside the storm faded. The clouds thinned, revealing a single bright star. Isolde watched it through the window and whispered to the night, "If you can see me, my king, know that I will never stop looking for you." The fire burned low again, steady and warm. In the hush that followed, baby Thorn sighed in his sleep. And though no one else heard it, a faint wolf's howl rose from somewhere beyond the veil, soft, proud, and full of promise. The tower had fallen silent after the storm. Only the wind moved through the broken doorway where the witch and the king had vanished. Isolde sat where Alaric's last trace had faded, the newborn pressed to her chest. The air still smelled faintly of him, iron, smoke, and pine. Marin worked quietly nearby, repairing the warding circle that had cracked in the fight. Her hands shook. Every time the chalk touched stone, she flinched at the echo of the witch's laughter. At last she whispered, "He's gone, is it?" "I know." Isolde's voice was soft, almost calm. "But the bond isn't dead. I can still feel him, like a thread far away. That's only grief." "No," Isolde said, shaking her head. "Grief is heavy. This feels alive." She lifted her son slightly. "He deserves to know his father's name, even if the world calls it cursed." "Thorn Alaric," Marin said quietly. "Strong enough to carry both." Isolde smiled faintly. "Thorn Alaric it shall be." They buried what remained of the fire, packed what little they had, and began the long journey back to the palace. Word would already be spreading, rumors of a vanished king, of thunder that spoke and lightning that bore his name. When they reached the city gates, people knelt in silence. No one asked questions. They looked at the queen's pale face, at the small bundle in her arms, and bowed their heads. In the grand hall Isolde stood before the throne and spoke with the steady grace of a woman who had already cried every tear. "The king has fallen defending his kingdom from an ancient enemy. His sacrifice has bought us peace once more." The court erupted in murmurs, but none dared challenge her. She lifted the infant high. "This is Prince Thorn, heir to the throne and living proof that our king's courage endures." The crowd bowed deeply. The sound of 100 voices whispering Alaric's name filled the hall. That night, when the court had gone, Isolde walked to the highest balcony. The air smelled of rain and stone. Marin joined her, wrapping a cloak around her shoulders. "You spoke like a queen today," Marin said. "I had no choice," Isolde replied. "If the kingdom falls apart, his sacrifice will mean nothing. You can't bear this alone forever." "I'll have to." She looked up at the stars. "Somewhere out there he still watches. Can feel it. When the wind rises, when the fire crackles, he's there." Marin touched her arm. "Then hold on to that. Let it keep you alive." Isolde nodded, but her eyes were distant. "He promised he'd find me again. One day I'll hold him to it." Years passed. Thorn grew strong, with his father's silver eyes and his mother's quiet resolve. The kingdom flourished under Isolde's rule. She rode with her armies, rebuilt villages, and turned fields blackened by war into gold again. People began to call her Isolde the Steadfast, the queen who would not break. But at night, when the palace slept, she still walked the empty corridors to Alaric's old chamber. The sword he had left behind hung above the hearth. She would trace its hilt with her fingers and whisper, "I'm keeping your promise, love. I'm still here." One winter evening Marin found her in the library, staring at a sealed chest covered in dust. "What is it?" Marin asked. "His journals," Isolde said. "The knights found them hidden behind a wall. She opened the lid carefully. Inside lay stacks of parchment, tied with leather cords. On top, a single letter bore her name in Alaric's handwriting. Her hands shook as she broke the seal. The words inside were short. If you are reading this, the bargain is done. Do not waste your life on sorrow. Raise our son to be wiser than his father. And when the blood moon rises again, look to the eastern sky. There between worlds I will wait. Isolde pressed the paper to her heart. He knew, she whispered. He knew he'd find a way back. Marin's eyes glistened. Then perhaps this isn't an ending after all. Spring returned to the kingdom, carrying warmth and new life. The rivers that had once frozen under the witch's curse now ran clear and bright. Yet Isolde felt the emptiness of the throne beside her each time she sat in court. She led well, ruled wisely, but the quiet moments were hardest. At dusk she often walked the palace gardens, Thorn toddling beside her, his small hand gripping her fingers. "Tell me about father," the boy would say. "What do you want to know?" "Everything," she smiled. He was brave and stubborn, and he loved this kingdom more than life itself. But most of all, he loved you, even before you were born. Will he come back? The question cut through her like a blade. She knelt, looking into his silver eyes. "I don't know, my heart. But I believe love can cross even the darkest distance." He nodded solemnly, as though he understood more than his years allowed. "Then we'll wait for him." One evening, a messenger arrived from the northern border carrying a sealed packet. Inside was a small stone, black as obsidian, carved with the mark of the Moon Witch. Beneath it lay another scrap of parchment, blank except for a single phrase written in Alaric's hand. "Still fighting." Isolde's breath caught. "He's alive." Marin examined the stone. This came from the Fey realm. How could he send it? "Through the bond," Isolde said, her voice trembling. "He found a way." She turned the stone over and over in her palm, feeling the faint heat it gave off, as if it held his heartbeat. "Then I was right not to give up." Marin smiled through tears. "You never do." The years rolled forward. Thorn grew into a tall youth, his father's strength and his mother's resolve shining in him. He trained with the wolves of the royal guard, learned the laws of the council, and carried his father's sword across his back. On the night of his 15th year, the castle bells rang without reason. The moon hung low and red again, the same crimson hue that had marked his birth. Isolde stood on the balcony, the obsidian stone warm in her hand. The bond thrummed in her chest, faint but clear, a pulse that wasn't her own. Marin joined her. "Do you feel it too?" "Yes," Isolde whispered. "He's calling." Then the witch's power must be weakening. Isolde looked out over the dark forests. Or the realm between ours and hers is thinning. Either way, it's time I kept my promise. Before dawn she saddled a horse, wrapped herself in a cloak, and rode toward the mountains. Marin insisted on following, Thorn close behind despite her protests. "I won't stay behind," he said. "If father is out there, he deserves to see what he saved." They rode for 3 days through rain and shadow until they reached the edge of the old Fey forest, where mist hung like curtains of glass. There, deep among the silver trees, stood a pool that reflected no light. "This is the Vale," Marin said. "Cross it, and there's no return unless he sends you back." Isolde dismounted. "Then I'll trust him to guide me once more." She turned to her son. "Whatever happens, you lead the people well. Never make bargains born of fear." He swallowed hard. "I'll bring you both home." She smiled, touching his cheek. "I have no doubt." Then she stepped into the pool. Ripples spread across the surface, light flared, and in a heartbeat she was gone. On the other side, the air tasted of starlight. The ground shimmered beneath her feet. She stood in a twilight world where the sky burned silver and gold at once. And ahead, chained to a stone altar, was Alaric. He looked older, thinner, but his eyes lit when he saw her. "Isolde." She ran to him, cupping his face in trembling hands. "You kept your promise. I told you I would," he said with a hoarse laugh. "But you shouldn't have come." "I had to. Our son is grown. He carries your sword." Pride flickered across his weary face. "Then I can rest." "No," she said fiercely. "You can live." From the shadows the witch's voice answered, "Only one may leave my realm. Choose." Isolde turned, meeting the witch's cold eyes. "Then I choose both. You have no hold on us now. The child you claimed to own lives free, and love has undone your curse." Irindra's expression wavered. Cracks of light spread through her translucent skin. "Impossible." "Love is the oldest magic," Isolde said, taking Alaric's hand. "And it's stronger than your hate." The chains dissolved in a rush of light. The witch screamed once, and her form shattered like glass, scattering into the air. When the light faded, Alaric stood free. He took a shaky step forward, then gathered Isolde into his arms. "You came for me." "Always," she whispered. They crossed back through the pool together as the sun rose over the mountains. On the other side, Thorn waited, sword drawn, ready to defend. When he saw them, he dropped the blade and ran forward. Alaric knelt, pulling him into a fierce embrace. "You've grown into everything I dreamed," he said. "Everything worth returning for." That night, the three of them stood on the palace balcony watching the stars appear. The kingdom below shimmered with lanterns, celebrating the miracle of the king's return. Isolde leaned against Alaric's shoulder. "Do you think the peace will last this time?" "It will," he said, "because we'll guard it together." Thorn pointed at the sky. "Look, the moon." It hung bright and full, no longer blood-red but pure silver. The curse was gone. Isolde smiled faintly. "He spent 8 years loving me from afar," she said softly. "Now he'll spend the rest of his life beside me." Alaric kissed her hand. "Forever, my queen." And for the first time in years, the wind that swept through the kingdom carried not fear or sorrow, but the promise of peace hard-won and love returned. The castle had long since settled back into peace. Birds nested again in the palace towers, the bells rang at sunrise, and every village road that had once known the tramp of soldiers now echoed only with merchants' carts. Still, some nights the wind carried a different sound, soft, low, like a wolf's call fading into the distance. When that sound reached the upper halls, Queen Isolde always paused to listen. One such evening, she and Alaric sat together in the library. Thorn, nearly grown, studied at a nearby desk. Candlelight turned his hair to gold and cast Alaric's face half in shadow. The years in the witch's realm had left faint silver lines at his temples, but his strength had returned. "Another late hour spent among old maps?" Isolde asked. Alaric smiled. "Old habits die slowly. I'm still trying to find how her realm fit beside ours. The borders keep shifting in my head." "Perhaps they're meant to," she said softly. "Maybe that's how the world reminds us not to trespass again." Before he could answer, the door opened. Thorn held up a small wooden box he'd found behind one of the shelves. "Look what I discovered," he said. It was hidden under the floorboards. Alaric frowned. "That wasn't there before." Thorn set it on the table and lifted the lid. Inside lay a bundle of parchment sealed in wax, the edges fragile with age. On the first sheet was a name written in the king's own hand, but the ink shimmered oddly, as though written half in shadow. Alaric reached out, touched it, and the seal cracked on its own. "It's mine," he said slowly. "Letters I wrote before I made the bargain. I thought I burned them." Isolde's fingers brushed his. "Perhaps the witch kept them to remind you of what you owed." He unfolded the first letter. The words were rough, written in the uneven script of a desperate man. "To the one who follows me into silence. If I am lost, do not curse the gods. Search the northern pass. Look for the black stone carved with a wolf. It guards the path to her realm. Should the blood moon ever rise again, that gate will open." Thorn leaned forward. "Then there's another way to reach her world." A gate that closes only once every generation, Alaric said. If this is true, the realms are still bound. Which means her power isn't gone. Isolde looked from father to son. Then we'll guard the pass. The second letter was shorter. For my heir. Power will tempt you as it tempted me. Remember that strength without mercy becomes the same cruelty you fight against. When the moon bleeds, do not fear the call. Follow the howl, it will lead you home. Thorn whispered. He wrote this for me before I was even born. Alaric nodded. I hoped you'd never need it. The third and final letter bore no name, only a seal shaped like a crescent. When Alaric broke it, the ink glowed faintly and a whisper filled the room. The witch's realm sleeps, but dreams never die. When love breaks chains, magic seeks balance. Something must take her place. Silence followed. The candles flickered once and went out. Isolde shivered. Something must take her place, she repeated. What does it mean? Alaric set the parchment down carefully. It means the curse left a wound. And wounds try to heal, sometimes by opening again. Over the next weeks, strange omens appeared. Wells overflowed though there'd been no rain. Mirrors clouded with frost though the hearth burned hot. Wolves began howling at noon, confused by the sun. One evening, Thorn burst into the council chamber. Mother! Father! Look outside. They followed him to the balcony. Across the valley, the northern mountains gleamed with a faint red haze, like embers trapped in snow. The blood moon, Isolde whispered. It's returning. Alaric's hand tightened on hers. Then the letters were a warning. The gate is waking. That night none of them slept. The palace thrummed with quiet panic. At dawn, Alaric ordered scouts north, but they returned trembling. The forest whispers, sire, one said. We heard voices calling your names. Marin, older now but still sharp-eyed, joined them in the war room. I told you her magic left a wound, she said. It's opening. But maybe it's not vengeance, it may be a plea. A plea? Isolde asked. Yes, magic longs for balance. The witch's death tore a hole. Something stirs to fill it, perhaps not her, but a remnant of what she was. Alaric looked toward the mountains. Then we must face it before it grows. 3 nights later the blood moon rose again, swollen and bright as if it had been waiting. Its light washed the land in crimson. The wolves in the valley howled as one. Thorn stood on the battlements, armor gleaming dull red. They're calling, he said quietly. Just like your letter said, father. Alaric joined him, cloak snapping in the wind. It's the same sound that haunted my dreams for years in the witch's realm. It's a summons. Then let's answer it, Thorn said. Before whatever waits on the other side comes here. Isolde approached, her gown billowing like dark water. I won't let you both go alone. Alaric turned to her. This could be a trap. Then we face it as a family, she said simply. He couldn't argue. The 3 of them rode out before dawn, guided by the red glow over the peaks. The road wound through sleeping villages, then into the wild forests where the first bargain had once been made. By midday they reached the northern pass. The air there shimmered faintly. The snow beneath their horses' hooves glowed from below. At the center of the valley stood a black monolith, the carved wolf from Alaric's letter. It was real, Thorn murmured. Alaric dismounted, tracing the carving with one hand. It marks the gate between worlds. As his fingers touched the stone, a low growl rolled through the air. The carving's eyes flared red, and a seam split the rock open like a door. Beyond it lay nothing but silver mist. Isolde's voice was steady. Together, they stepped through. The world on the other side was neither dark nor light. The ground shimmered like water though it was solid. Towers of crystal rose in the distance, their tops disappearing into clouds. A soft humming filled the air like 1,000 heartbeats. Welcome back, a voice said. They turned. A figure stood where the mist thickened. A woman made of light, her shape familiar yet altered. Not Irindra, but something born from her remnants. I am the echo, she said. I am what remains of her promise. What do you want? Alaric demanded. To end the balance. The vow that bound love and sacrifice must close. The blood moon calls for a final choice. Thorn stepped forward. Choice. One of you must stay to seal the realms. One life to guard the gate forever. Isolde's breath caught. No, we just found each other again. You can't ask this. The world always asks, the echo said softly. Peace demands keepers. Alaric drew his sword. Then take me. I made the first vow. Let me make the last. Thorn grabbed his arm. No, father. You've given enough. If a guard is needed, I'll do it. Isolde stepped between them. Neither of you will. I'll stay. They all spoke at once. No. But she raised her hand. Listen. This started with me. My defiance broke the barrier. My love freed him. It should end with me. Alaric's eyes burned with grief. I can't lose you again. You won't, she said softly. The bond will hold. You'll feel me in every wind that passes these mountains. The echo inclined her head. Her choice must be made willingly. If she stays, the gate closes and the curse dies forever. Marin's voice suddenly echoed from behind them. She had followed unseen through the gate. Isolde, there might be another way. No, Isolde said gently. For years I feared being nothing more than a queen trapped in duty. Now I have the chance to give my people true peace. Let me take it. Alaric trembled, torn between love and despair. At least let me say goodbye. She smiled through her tears. You never need to. I'm part of you. He kissed her once, gently, as the light around them brightened. I'll find you again, he whispered. I'll be waiting in every moonrise, she replied. She stepped into the center of the glowing circle. The echo touched her forehead, and light poured from her body. White, gold, and silver all at once. The ground shook. The mist drew inward. Then with a soft sigh the gate closed. When the light faded, Alaric and Thorn stood alone in the empty valley. The black stone had turned to white marble, its carved wolf now calm, eyes closed as if at peace. A breeze stirred, carrying a whisper only they could hear. Live well. Alaric sank to his knees, head bowed. Thorn rested a hand on his shoulder. She kept the promise, father. Alaric nodded, tears glinting. And we'll keep hers. Back at the palace, weeks later, they placed a single crystal from the gate atop the throne beside his. No one sat there. But when the moon rose full and silver again, a gentle wind would move through the hall, and every candle flame would lean toward it, like the world itself remembering the queen who had become its guardian. Thorn took up rule beside his father, and sometimes when he walked the northern walls, he would hear a woman's voice in the rustle of leaves. Protect them, my son. For love that guards is never lost. 2 years had passed since the night the gate had closed. Spring had returned twice, bringing harvests richer than any in memory. Yet to Alaric and Thorn every dawn still carried a hollow note. Isolde's absence was a silence that never faded. It lived in the way the corridors echoed, in the pause before each prayer, in the hush that followed laughter. Still they endured. The kingdom thrived under father and son, and peace held across the borders. But sometimes when the moon rose red gold instead of silver, the wind around the palace sang, a sound like a woman's voice carried over miles. On one such night, Alaric stood at the northern wall, staring at the distant mountains. The air shimmered faintly, the way it had before the first blood moon. He felt the old pull, that familiar tightening in his chest where the bond had once burned bright. Thorn joined him. Again? The prince asked quietly. Alaric nodded. She's trying to reach us. Maybe she never left, Thorn said. Maybe she's trapped between worlds. Alaric turned to him. You think the gate can still be opened? It was sealed by her will, Thorn answered. But the echo said love is the oldest magic. If love opened it once, he let the rest hang in the air. For a long moment Alaric said nothing. Then he smiled, a weary, dangerous smile that belonged to a man who had already lost everything once. Gather your gear. We ride at dawn. By morning the valley lay under mist again. Father and son rode north, following the old path through forests thick with dew. The people watched them go in silence. Everyone in the kingdom knew this journey was not of war, but of hope. At the base of the mountains they found Maren waiting. She was older, her hair streaked with white, yet her eyes burned as bright as ever. I knew you'd come, she said. The veil's thinning. I can feel it. You'll help us cross? Alaric asked. I'll help you try, she said. But know this, every opening takes something. A toll of blood, of memory, or of time. If you pass through, you might not come back the same. Alaric glanced at Thorn. We've already paid worse prices. They climbed to the valley where the white stone wolf still stood. Its eyes, once closed in peace, now glimmered faintly, as if it were dreaming. Maren drew symbols in the dirt around it, mixing ash and salt. Place your hands here, she said. Think only of her. They did. Isolde's face rose in both their minds, her laughter, her strength, the calm of her voice. The air thickened, the ground trembled. A crack of light ran through the stone, widening until the valley filled with silver mist. She's answering, Maren whispered. Go! Alaric clasped his son's arm. Whatever happens, stay beside me. They stepped into the light. The Fey realm opened around them like a breath held too long. Twilight stretched in every direction. Rivers of crystal flowed uphill. Flowers bloomed in colors no mortal eye had seen. And above it all hung a moon that was both full and broken, shards drifting through the sky like glass. Beautiful, Thorn murmured. Beautiful and deadly, Alaric said. Keep your guard. They followed a path of silver grass until the air began to hum. From the mist ahead came a shape, tall, cloaked, her hair a crown of light. Isolde. She looked unchanged, though her eyes carried the calm of eternity. When she saw them, the faint light around her flickered, and for a heartbeat she looked almost mortal again. Alaric, she whispered. Thorn. He ran to her before he could stop himself, gathering her into his arms. Her body was warm, real, but faint, half transparent, as though made of light. I told you I'd find you, he said. You shouldn't have come, she said softly. The gate demands balance. For me to return, another must stay. Then I'll stay, he said instantly. No, Thorn cut in. You both will. I'll take your place. Isolde turned sharply. Don't even speak it. You are our future. The air shuddered again. Thunder rolled across the skyless realm. From the distance came the echo's voice, faint but firm. The gate must choose. The ground split open, revealing the same glowing circle that had once claimed her. Wind whipped around them, scattering sparks of light. Isolde's form flickered. You see, the realms won't allow this. Love can pass between them, but not bodies. Then we'll break that rule too, Alaric said through clenched teeth. He drew his sword, thrust it into the circle, and shouted an oath older than language. The light hissed, dimmed, and for a moment the pull of the gate lessened. Father! Thorn cried. It's working. Isolde reached for him. Stop, if you shatter the gate, both worlds will collapse. Alaric met her gaze. I can hold it just long enough for you to cross. No, she screamed. He smiled at her, the same quiet, stubborn smile he'd given the day they wed. You were my salvation once. Let me be yours now. He drove the sword deeper. Light exploded outward, and a great wind flung them apart. When the brightness faded, Isolde was kneeling on the grass of their own world. Beside her, Thorn lay unconscious. The valley was whole again. The white wolf statue was gone, and Alaric was nowhere. Isolde woke to the sound of rain. Maren knelt beside her, trying to rouse Thorn. When he stirred, Isolde gathered him into her arms. He's gone, the boy whispered hoarsely. She nodded. He stayed behind. They buried his sword at the mouth of the valley, marking the spot with a cairn of smooth stones. For 3 days the sky wept. For 3 nights the wolves howled. Then on the 4th dawn the rain stopped and sunlight broke through. Isolde stood before the grave, her cloak snapping in the wind. "He gave everything twice over," she said quietly. "Once to save the kingdom, once to bring me home." Marin placed a hand on her shoulder. "He knew you'd keep the peace he died for." "I will," Isolde said. "But I'll also keep his promise. He said love never ends, and I intend to prove it." Years passed, and stories turned to legend. Queen Isolde ruled wisely until her hair turned white as frost. Prince Thorn became king after her, building temples at every border so that both the living and the lost might find rest. On clear nights he would walk the ramparts, listening to the wind that swept down from the mountains. And sometimes far away, he swore he heard a wolf's call, strong, proud, endless. When he told his mother, she only smiled. "He's still watching over us," she said. "The bond doesn't die. It only changes shape." One winter evening, as snow began to fall, Isolde climbed the northern tower alone. The moon hung full and silver. The stars shone so brightly they seemed close enough to touch. Below, the kingdom glittered. Fields, rivers, villages, all safe. She closed her eyes. "Alaric," she whispered, "can you hear me?" A breeze brushed her cheek, gentle and warm despite the cold. Then came the faintest sound, a low, distant howl that echoed through the valleys, rising higher until it blended with the wind. She smiled through her tears. "I thought so." Behind her, Thorn appeared, silent as his father once was. He placed a cloak over her shoulders. "It's freezing, Mother." "I don't feel it," she said. "He's here." They stood together watching the moon climb higher. After a while Thorn asked, "Do you think we'll ever see him again?" "Yes," she said simply. "When the time is right. The worlds are never truly apart. They only sleep between breaths." He took her hand. "Then until that day, we keep building what he left us. And keep listening," she said. "Every time the wind howls, remember, it's love calling across the realms." That night she dreamed. She walked through a forest of silver trees under a sky without end. At the edge of a clear lake stood Alaric, whole and smiling. "Did I keep you waiting long?" he asked. "Only a lifetime," she answered. He held out his hand. "Then let's not waste another moment." She took it, and together they stepped into the water. The surface rippled once, then stilled. Above them, 2 stars flared brighter than all the rest, twin lights forever bound. In the mortal world, the moon rose higher, casting its glow over the kingdom they had built, fields green even in winter, rivers shining like silver threads. And from somewhere beyond the mountains came the faint echo of a wolf's song, not of sorrow but of triumph, stretching across worlds. It carried a promise that every heart in the land somehow heard and understood. Love does not end. It only changes its shape. And so, the tale of love that defied realms finally comes to rest beneath the silver moon. But remember, every ending is only a breath before the next beginning. If this story touched you, if it made you believe that love can outlast time itself, then join me here, where legends never fade. Hit subscribe, tap that notification bell, and walk with me into the next world of forgotten kings, cursed hearts, and promises whispered to the wind. Your story begins the moment you click play again, because here the magic never truly ends.